Go ahead and share it here.
I
Are you
can
able to see
see. I can see it's about to. Yes, I'm able to see it. Are you
Okay.
able to put it in full screen mode?
Yes, I'm trying so. There you go. Can you see it in full screen?
Not yet. Now, yes.
Yeah, it's fine now.
So, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm sorry for maybe the technical hitch which has just taken place. My presentation is on disaster and the conflict resilience, that is heritage in Africa. May I go to the next slide, please? So Africa's rich heritage, as you may be aware, or maybe talking about why heritage resilience matters in Africa. I would like to start by saying that Africa's heritage is under a severe threat from natural disasters and conflicts. So there is urgent need to have strategies that would ensure the protection and sustainability of our heritage. Africa holds a unique place in global heritage narrative. Next slide. So what is a resilient heritage? Heritage that can withstand, that can adapt to and recover from disaster and conflict. That is what we call a resilient heritage. So for the heritage to be deemed as resilient, it must be able to withstand, it must be able to adopt, it must be able to recover from disaster. If it cannot recover from disaster, if it cannot adopt, if it cannot withstand or cope with a disaster, that heritage is not resilient. And it involves preparedness, response, recovery, and adaptation. So heritage resilience incorporates preparedness, response, recovery, and adaptation. And it integrates traditional and scientific knowledge. So for the heritage to be resilient, it has to bring on board aspects that have to do with maybe indigenous knowledge systems, or scientific or conventional, that is knowledge. Next slide. So what are the main threats to African heritage? So in terms of the threats to African heritage, what has been established is that under natural, that is disasters, we have floods, we have wildfires, and we have got coastal erosion. And when it comes to climate change as a major threat, we have rising temperatures and erratic weather conditions or patterns. Then we have conflicts, civil war, looting, targeted death, and that is a growth. So you find that in this case, what we are saying is that when you look at the environment around us, we have in some cases civil wars. Just a minute. Come. You are, I'm in a Zoom meeting, so you are inconveniencing. So see, I talked about conflicts. So in terms of conflicts, we've got civil war, then we have got looting, then we also have targeted destruction. So if you have got people who just decide to, destroy some elements of heritage value, at the end of the day, that is likely to cause damage to our heritage. Next slide. So what you have there is a slide which is showing the impact of climate change on OUV. And in this case, we've got some examples there where we've got some sites which have been depicted in terms of the sea rise and the impact on heritage. Most of those sites you see there, they are found in West Africa. So you can see as the sea rises, it targets those heritage sites which are along the coast. If we can go to the next slide. So the impact of climate change on outstanding universal value still continues. Here you can see that with time, the ice cap on the Mount Kilimanjaro is reducing with time. Actually, a study has been conducted at Mount Kilimanjaro, where over a period of 100 years, the ice cap is continuously reducing. If you look at the mountain, the top, the size of the cap on Mount Kilimanjaro on the left and on the right photo, you can easily see that the one on the right has got a lesser coverage of ice cap, meaning that most of the ice which is supposed to be capping the mountain, Mount Kilimanjaro, has been has melted due to changes in climate over time. Next slide. So there you can see the photos that you see.
Hello, Mr. Kagosi. Mr. Kagosi, have we lost you?
Wait, he's muted. Can you please unmute your
Okay.
mic? Yeah, okay.
Have I muted myself? Is it now or the whole of my presentation?
Just now.
Okay. No, sorry for that. So we have on the that is on top there, we have images of ice cap, which is reducing with time. And even at the bottom, you can see that on the left, you have got a lot of ice, and with time, you find that the ice cap is also reducing. Next slide. Meaning that if your site was nominated on the basis of the size of rather the presence of the ice cap, you find that when it is reducing, the more the ice cap is reducing, the more you are taking away the integrity of this particular the key attributes. And the more you deal with the key attributes becomes compromised, the more you have a challenge. Let's go to the next slide. Or you are threatening the site with a danger listing or delisting in a way. So you can also see that climate change has got impact on wildlife existence. In some cases, you find that due to lack of water, due to drought, in most cases, wildlife ends up being wiped out. Let's go to the next slide. So there, I'm just depicting, the causes of climate change. You find that anthropogenic activities such as, emissions of, carbon dioxide and associated dust particles from different pollutants. These, they end up affecting, the precipitation, and in the process, you find that you experience droughts, and in some cases, you even experience high temperatures because the atmosphere is filled up with particles or substances which are leading to global warming. Next slide. So there, also just trying to show you that we have examples of sites by region and by, we have states parties by region, as well as their representative sites and the type of hazard that they are affected by. So we have, for example, in Egypt, we have sites like Alexandria, which has got some coastal flooding and erosion, which is experienced. Then we have the Valley of the Kings. It is also affected by floods. In Kenya, for Jesus, we have a hazard, which is flood, as a major hazard. In Mali, in Timbuktu, we've got desertification. Then we also have island, the island of St. Louis. There you also have floods. In Senegal, you've got Solomon Delta. There are also issues of climate change. Then you've got St. Louis again. This has got erosion and floods. We go to the next, that is slide. So in South Africa, we've got Robben Island. The hazard there is climate change. Then you have got the ruins of Kilwa, Kiswani, and there you've got the coastal flood and erosion. Then in Tanzania, you've got the ruins of Kilwa, Kiswani, and ruins of Swongo, Nzini. This is experiencing climate change. We go to the next slide. So there I'm just showing you articles which I've been reporting on the nature of climatic changes. So we have a number of sites there that have been listed, and where you've got the oval circlings in red, those are just figures just to emphasize in terms of climate change, what is happening around the coasts, and around the coastal areas of Africa. We go to the next slide. Yeah, so again, if you look at those maps, I'm just trying to show you that with time, African heritage sites are being threatened by sea level, with the rates being extremes. So you can see that at first, in the early years, there were few areas which were severely affected, but with time you can see that there are a number of sites which are increasingly under pressure from impacts of flooding, or the tropical cyclones and flooding. Next. Let's go to next. I think that one was. Yes, so that is an example of, that is Robben Island, and you can see that this World Heritage Site has not been spared from the effects of climate change. You can see the coastal waves which are attacking the edge or the shoreline of or the coastline of Robben Island. Next. We have got a case study of Timbuktu, Mali. Mali, here now we want to talk about issues of conflicts. In 2012, the 2012 conflicts led to destruction of, the Meseriums. Community, the community, smuggled out manuscripts to for safekeeping. And during this time, some of the manuscripts were even destroyed, as we'll be able to see in the next slides. Then there were international renovation efforts. So here you can see the case study of Timbuktu, Mali. This person is in the picture, is holding a manuscript which is bent, and you can see all those manuscripts which are on the ground there in a photo courtesy of UNESCO. All those manuscripts were bent down as a result of, conflicts within Mali. Let's go. Let's proceed. Next slide. So the case study of island of Mozambique. The cyclone that is Kenneth of 2019 severely impacted historic infrastructure. So the impacts, the evident impacts were sea level rise, coastal erosion, saltwater intrusion, and one may even want to attempt to understand what were the adaptive measures or mitigation measures. So seawalls were constructed, flood protection and cultural, that is heritage protection, was implemented. And in terms of community and technical collaboration, this was also done or restored. Was done to restore key sites. What was also evident at the island of on the island of Mozambique was that we had emphasis going on using traditional methods. Let's proceed on. Strategies for resilience. So risk identification and mapping is one of the strategies for resilience, because if you don't identify risks and you don't map them, you will not know how to deal with them. Then integration of DRM into heritage management plans. So it is always important to make sure that you integrate disaster risk management into heritage or the conventional heritage management planning. Then what is also important to note is, in terms of strategies for resilience, is that conflict sensitive conflict sensitive approaches are encouraged. Then there is also an empowerment of local communities. If you don't empower local communities, they're likely to get involved in destruction of our heritage. Next slide. So what you see there is houses which have been flooded. This is in Mombasa, Old Town. And so what you have there is a disaster management plan. You can see water has flooded all the aisles or the paths in between the houses. This could have been because of bad or poor drainage system, which cannot cope with the high rainfall regimes and the cyclones from the ocean. From the Indian Ocean. Can we proceed on? So what are the tools and frameworks? So the tools and frameworks for which are used by UNESCO, UNESCO DRM strategy for World Heritage. This is a publication by UNESCO. Then there's an ICOMOS first aid for cultural heritage in crisis. Then there's African World Heritage Fund programs, AWHF programs. These are also frameworks for mitigating or managing impacts. Next. Innovation and opportunities. So what creativity and opportunities have been created in this field so far on this theme? The use of drones and GIS for monitoring. Then there's the 3D scanning and the digital heritage activities. Then we also have mobile-based early warning systems. Next. So what are the recommendations? My first recommendation is that we have to integrate DRM into national policies. If the national policies do not integrate this, it will be very difficult to implement disaster risk management. Then you have to strengthen technical and community capabilities. Then we also have to mobilize funding and partnerships. You cannot deal with disasters with poor funding. Then the other aspect is that we have to foster cross-border collaboration when it comes to disaster risk management. We go to the next slide. So what is the call to action? The call to action is resilient heritage means resilient communities. Resilient heritage means investing in knowledge, innovation, and collaboration. Resilient heritage also means protecting heritage in preserving the heritage identity. We go to the next one. At this point in time, I would like to say thank you for having spent some time to listen to my, I don't know whether I should call it long or short presentation. Apologies, in some cases I've been struggling to clarify issues is simply because I'm using a very small, screen. I'm using a handheld that is a gadget, which is a phone. I should have used my laptop. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kagosi, for this wonderful and elaborate presentation. You never cease to amuse me. I must also indicate that among the many people Mr. Kagosi has taught in one or the other, I'm one of them. And so we really thank you very much, Mr. Kagosi. Now, before we go into the next presentation, I'll ask my colleague Hospice to put it down for now. And I want to give a brief kind of observations from Mr. Kagosi's presentation. And please, people, if you have any questions, this is the time to have questions to Mr. Kagosi, because I know is really engaged and will not be able to be with us for so long. And I want to echo about the resilient heritage means resilient communities. And throughout his presentation, Mr. Kagosi has really elaborated the need to incorporate the communities in whatever we do. And celebrating the 60 years, ICOMOS is calling us to participate in different ways, innovative ways, and capacity building aspects, such that we can promote this resilient heritage. And from his presentation and also the recommendations, he's emphasizing incorporating the risk disaster management plan into the management of heritage. And if we do that, as site managers who may be here, they really testify on how important the disaster risk management plan is to tackle issues to do with disasters that can compromise the OUV of our sites. Even those sites which are not, which are not inscribed, they can as well be managed well, so long as we have these tools Mr. Kagosi is talking about. So I'll give the audience to ask any questions. My colleagues, do you have any questions, Zuhura, in the chat?
I'm not sure about that, but maybe Hospice and Klaus can help us for French speakers. I saw some French messages.
Oh, some questions, yeah.
Yeah, so maybe they can help us with that.
Maybe as they wait, maybe I can pose a small question to Mr. Kagosi as we get clarification in the chat. What has really kept you moving, Mr. Kagosi? Because when I look at your CV and profile and the zeal you've had on empowering young people in this field or sector, I am wondering what has kept you moving and what are some of the challenges you as a person passionate about heritage conservation have you found and how have you overcome them? It could be a chance for us to learn from you as well.
Thank you very much, Chris. I should be very honest with you. This is a very difficult question for me to answer, but I can safely say that some people have mentioned or observed that there's never been a day that passes without me mentioning the word heritage. So I want to start that by saying that when I was very young, I used to enjoy watching, the documentaries by Professor Ali Mazrui, who would look at, his monumental sites and say, Africa is a triple heritage, a heritage from the West, a heritage of the Muslim, and a heritage of the Africans. So that one, in short, has kept me going, and I wake out of that is passion. I enjoy that is explaining heritage. I enjoy exploring heritage. I enjoy capacity building in heritage. And I should say that to a certain extent, I also enjoy reading a lot about heritage. So that all these, they have kept me going.
Séminaire fédéral à lui. Là, séminaire fédéral à de moi de sortir non quoi. Bâtiment résistant au conflit.
So I'm saying that this has kept me going, and at the same time, what has also kept me going is the fact that I've built a very big network around myself, and each time I link up with my colleagues in the field, it is like a learning process. I'll give you an example. Just the past 3 days ago, we have been having a workshop on sustainable development, and in the heritage, in the African heritage context, and that workshop attracted a number of high-ranking experts from all over Africa, from Egypt, Senegal, Kenya, Malawi, Tanzania, Ethiopia, Lesotho, Botswana, Namibia, Mauritius, you can name it, Zimbabwe, Zambia. So all these experts are people that have also known over a long period of time, and each time we meet, it's a learning process. So I would even just add to say, arising from my passion, just this way, I can safely say that this workshop we had in Zambia was a brainchild of my passion, because I noticed that we have got a sustainable development workshop, policy in Africa, but we're still grappling with issues of development, balancing development and conservation. We are still grappling with issues of disasters, climate, and so on, which are also affecting sustainability of our world heritage sites. So we came up with that program, and this program, at the end of the day, produced another declaration. I know there have been some declarations before, the Ngorongoro Declaration, the Robben Island Declaration, but yesterday we had another declaration which we are calling the Moso-Tunya Victoria Falls Livingstone Declaration on Sustainable Development, where we are challenging the World Heritage Policy to say it's not helping us in terms of, implementing projects on the African continent. So in terms of, the challenges, I think the challenges that I experience in managing heritage or facing heritage are issues of, lack of, community, benefits arising from our heritage resources, especially those which are of cultural nature. You find that it's very difficult for the communities to benefit from these sites we are calling heritage sites. But beyond that, I would like also to state that the other challenge is the fact that these sites are not very well funded for us to tackle issues of disasters. If there is a disaster, you find that at a heritage site, nobody cares, because the interest of those who are protecting these sites is to protect human life, and of course in protecting human life, but the focus should also be in protecting our World Heritage values. And the other challenge is that most of our sites are difficult to access, or there's poor accessibility, such that even when it comes to people appreciating these sites, in some cases it's very difficult, because for people to contribute to heritage conservation or to disaster management, they must be able to appreciate, enjoy the heritage. But if they cannot access it, people are not aware of it, it becomes a problem. Let me leave here, because the session is not only for me.
Wow, that is really very interesting. I can maybe read, you're having full of praises in the comment section, and people are very happy about your presentation. And thank you for sharing with us your passion in heritage management and conservation, but also inspiring young people, because I'm one of the people who have been looking up to you for quite long. So thank you very much for that. There is one colleague who said, who gave this comment, Karos, he's called Karos Jaramillo. Cultural heritage is a social construction that lacks indicators and standards, values such as historicity, science, pride, etc. can't be measured or compared. Therefore, we have developed a system that unfolds as the need arises, preventing adequate interaction between the heritage industry and other sectors of society, such as science, technology, economy, etc. Building an enclosed system that can't be examined or challenged as any other discipline, because it's supported on moral grounds above all. The World Heritage Convention leveled cultural heritage to nature, saying that it is irrepressible and irrepressibility. Irrepressible, therefore it needs protection. Such statement sealed any discussion, for example, on the value cost of cultural heritage vis-a-vis climate crisis. Thank you very much, Carlos. Unless Mr. Kagosi, you have any reaction to that comment, otherwise I'll let you be.
Thank you, Chris. I want to, am I audible enough?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so I want to agree with the presenter of that, the person, the colleague, our colleague who has made that presentation. Yes, indeed. It is very difficult, to make, cultural heritage. Like it has already been pointed out, to say cultural heritage is a social construct. Rather, not cultural, but just a heritage is a social construct. Because what we may call heritage of pain today may be a heritage of enjoyment tomorrow. And even the feeling also, or the appreciation of a heritage place in some cases, it also changes with time. Find that
Sorry about that. Sure, can you please mute? Thank you. Mr. Kagosi,
I was
mute.
saying that is also part. I was saying that is also part of heritage, because I'm hearing it is a social construct. I'm hearing some language which is different from my language. So already that is also a social construct. And as I was listening, I was even failing. I was failing to measure.
Please,
Okay.
can you help us in French? Me, I'm at Benin. I'm in Benin, but I don't understand anything in your presentation. Please
Okay.
help us to understand. Aidez-nous en français aussi, puisque vous allez dans une seule langue, mais nous, les anglophones, on est pénalisés d'une manière ou d'une autre. Je suivais depuis plus de 45 minutes, mais je ne comprends pas grand-chose. Seulement les présentations, les PowerPoints sont en français, mais les explications, on en a aussi besoin en tant que un acteur défenseur du patrimoine. Merci beaucoup pour votre attention.
Ok.
Yes, please.
Bonsoir. Bonsoir, monsieur. Parfait. Merci beaucoup. Vous pouvez activer la transcription automatique sur votre écran.
Oui, bonjour, chers frères. En fait, j'ai essayé de faire ça sur Zoom. Je n'ai pas vu où est-ce qu'on fait ça. J'ai regardé l'onglet dans tous les paramètres, je n'ai pas vu malheureusement. J'ai écrit dans le chat. Comment est-ce on peut faire pour traduire en français? Personne ne m'a répondu. Du coup, je me bats aussi à écouter en anglais. Donc, je ne sais pas ce qu'on peut faire là maintenant.
Ok, je vous reviens. Je vous reviens dans le chat.
Okay, thank you very much. We have a hand by Deng. Please, you can unmute and ask your question, please. Deng? Okay, I think maybe we can go ahead. Thank you, Mr. Kagosi, for your presentation. If you have any other question, you can put it in your chat. We can get back the presenters and send them the questions, and then we can again share these answers in the emails you shared with us. So thank you very much. I'll go ahead to bring another presenter who is Alice Biada, and I would like to mention that Alice Biada is a communicator, a documentarist, a song activist, and she's a specialist in African cultural heritage and development and promotion of cultural creative industries in Uganda. In Cameroon. And currently, she's the director of cultural heritage of for over 11 years in Cameroon, and she's a deputy director of she was a deputy director of Tangible Cultural Heritage, responsible for the implementation of UNESCO conventions, including 2001, 1970, 1954, and 1972 conventions. So unfortunately, Miss Alice is not with us, but he's being represented by Terence Besaka, who is currently a conservator at the National Museums of Cameroon and a cultural heritage and tourism management specialist. He is an IIC fellow, ICOMOS Cameroon member, ICOM Cameroon member, and the Museums Lab alumni, and is based in Yaoundé, Cameroon. He was also responsible for the young emerging professionals within the hierarchy of ICOMOS Cameroon. So Besaka, thank you very much for joining us. Please take the floor.
Thank you very much, Chris. Can you hear me very much?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you very much. I am Terence, as Chris said, and I'm sitting in for Alice Biada, that is traveling back from Zambia, from their workshop that they had with the African World
Just
Heritage
a moment, Terence. Sorry, Mr. Deng, you had a question to ask, but if you can wait a bit after this presentation, you can ask your question, right?
Thank you very
Okay.
much. I'll be waiting. Yeah, thank you.
All right. Sorry about that, Terence. Continue.
Okay, no, it's okay. So yeah, we are talking about community preservation strategies in Africa with concrete examples. So I may be using both languages so that maybe if Perfect is unable to understand, but I think he should read this and then he's going to understand. So in this, the theme of the International Day for Monuments on Site that we are celebrating today on disaster and conflict resilient heritage. So this, we are focusing on community preservation strategies in Africa, and we are taking the case of some examples that have been from our using the local community-based practices that will be able to meet up with the conflicts and the disaster that emerge or that is attacking our heritage. So we are going to move to the next slide, Chris, please. Yeah, for us to see the introduction, we'll find a picture, and that is a community in the Digibi Cultural Heritage Site in Cameroon, and which is affected by conflict. We have the insurgency, and they're also facing disaster. So natural catastrophes or disasters, armed conflicts represent major threats for African cultural heritage and natural heritages, and it is also essential to which is common to our cultural and natural identity. It is linked to our communities nowadays, that they are facing natural and armed conflicts, natural disasters and armed conflicts that has displaced some of them, has affected their OUV, which we find in our communities. So this presentation is going to explore the strategies, the community-based strategies that have been put in place to be able to reinforce the resilience of heritage sites, and also to focus on success stories of some of the communities or some of the World Heritage or African heritage sites that they've used community engagements or participative approaches to be able to meet up, to be able to resist this faced by catastrophes or armed conflicts, that they're able to respond to it successfully. So we'll find how they are able to put in place the strategies they have based on their local practices, based on their cultural milieu, that they have been able to meet up with what they are suffering from. So we're going to go to the next slide. We first of all look at the what are the major threats, what affecting our heritage. So we'll find the major threats that is affecting our heritage, or for some cases, we'll find earthquakes, floods, wildfires, and then in terms of, yes, in terms of armed conflicts, we're going to see how we have intentional destruction of sites, we have looting of cultural heritages. When we have armed conflicts, we have climate change, which is one of the major or one of the causes that is really recurring causes or threats to our heritage nowadays, which we see especially the rise in sea levels, desertification, extreme dryness caused by this. So these challenges they require innovative and collaborative approaches that we'll be able to use to be able to target and face these threats, to be able to meet up with what are they causing. So we find a picture of what we have, what they affected the archives, and which is this being the community-based approach that was used. So we can move to the next slide, please. So let's look at the role of the local communities. What do the local communities, how do they participate? It is very, very important for us to see that local communities are very much implicated in the conservation, protection, and also restoring our heritage. So it is for us to see how do the local communities play a very important role in the preservation, thanks to their proximity with the sites and their technical and their indigenous knowledge, the local knowledge that they used in either preserving it or constructing the site, or constructing the heritage. So this could be a natural site or a heritage site. So we'll see how in the picture where they were in terms of the Timbuktu that Mr. Kazugi just presented as well, that we are also seeing in our own case, how the local communities is being mobilized. They mobilize them in terms of conservation, in terms of restoration, and in terms of protection. So it means it also implies to able to defend in the case of a crisis when it arises. That is a protective role of the community. They help to protect the cultural or natural heritage sites when it comes to armed conflict. So they need an important role when we find protecting them from being looted, because when we have armed conflicts, a lot of looting takes place, a lot of intentional destruction. So if the population is take a front road to protect their heritage, then you find that there's less effects or negative effects on those in terms of looting the heritage. So the implication of the local community will reinforce the cultural identity and the social resilience of the heritage. We also see how they are constructing and how they are mobilized, how we want to see if they are their implication in their mobilization, their implication will help to reinforce that culture, reinforce that bond within the community. If they mobilize as a one person or as a group to be able to restore, to be able to protect, will help them to see that they keep that identity of cultural heritage protectors, as the guardians of and custodians of their heritage that they have at their level. And that's social resilience, which is able to adapt, able to respond very well when it comes to disaster and armed conflicts. Yeah, we'll move to the next slide, please. Okay, we'll look at the most examples of some of the strategies, community-based strategies that have really succeeded. And we'll take the participative local participation, which includes inhabitants, the local population that are involved in the restoration, like the case in Niger, in Niger, the historic center of Agadez, where we all equally find, we've just seen in the previous slide a picture of the documents that were community due to what they faced. So the community also was mobilized in the local participation. Local population participated massively in restoring. And then we have we find the historic center, which you find in the picture of you find them in the restoration process. Then we also find we also look at what local. We also find programs that are initiated by UNESCO, ICOMOS, to teach or to be able to reinforce capacity building programs, to be able to reinforce the techniques local site managers, the local population, in how to restore. And this will find the case of Great Zimbabwe, we'll find that of Suku, we'll find that of Digby in Cameroon. So the digitization of heritage, which is one of the next, one of the strategies that has been used, community-based strategies, we'll find 3D documentation of the sites to be able to protect them when you document them. And we'll find the case of the Royal Palaces of Abomey in Benin, Palais Royal d'Abomey in Benin, where they had to digitize their collections, they had to digitize and document the heritage, where in the case of faced with disaster, and which prevents them. So this is a success story of that we can take derive from those who are from Benin that they succeeded. So we have reutilization of the local and indigenous techniques and practices that we have. We'll find in the reconstruction, sustainable reconstruction using techniques, ancestral techniques, which is also adapted to the local context of the heritage. We've cited Great Zimbabwe, yes, where they had to rebuild their stone structures and then look at how where they had where the walls were started falling off and how to restore them. We have the Africa 2009 program that helped to train technicians, help to train the local population as well, how they can use their local techniques to restore what was constructed by their forefathers, their ancestors. So we'll see them in this, even in the Digby, even in go to Suku in Nigeria, you find where the Hidi and his people, they are doing a great job in the reconstruction. The Mafa in Cameroon are also doing a great job at that level to reconstruct their sites or their heritage affected by natural disasters. We have climate change that has affected the zone, and we find the walls falling off. We find also armed conflict by the sect insurgency, Boko Haram, that also affecting the heritage in this zone. We'll move to the next slide, please. Yeah, we see still in the, for examples, in Africa, we have the Timbuktu in Mali, where we have the reconstruction of mausoleums that were destroyed with the support of the local population and also knowledge or expertise from the local technicians and experts in the domain. We have that of in Benin, the Palais Royal d'Abomey. We have preservation after from a fire incidents, and thanks to the digitization and local techniques documentation that were documented, and it was to be able to help to reconstruct, to be able to restore based on what they had, like what they had documented earlier and digitize, that helps them to be able to meet up, and the local know-how. So we also have, in terms of natural heritage, we have the Virunga National Park in DR Congo, where we had collaboration with the local communities to protect the biodiversity in the context of the armed conflict in DR Congo that we know of. So we see them that the local communities have helped a lot when they had a local conflict to be able to preserve the site, to be able to meet up with the challenges. So when we take such examples, it was to help us to see how these communities participate in the resilience of their heritage, how to make it more how to preserve it. And these strategies are very much welcome if we're able to tap from such successful examples, concrete examples in Africa, or some of the examples we have seen how the communities are at the forefront of protecting their heritage, restoring it, and to ensure that it is resilient to disaster and armed conflicts. The next slide, please. So we'll move now to the recommendations. From the examples we are going to propose, we are going to see, we have been able to analyze and see together, we can propose the following recommendations. So there is need to reinforce the local capacities of the population through special training offered to the local population. So there is need for assistance to assist the population for recycling their various techniques, you see, and the training will help to meet up that. It helps in the transmission of the technology from the old to the younger generation, so that this technique, these skills will not die out or will not disappear as time goes on. So there's also need to sensitize the communities on the importance of protecting their heritage or preserving their heritage during disaster period or during armed conflicts, and also how it is important for resilience. Please, let's go back. Yeah, thank you, please. Another recommendation that we are also proposing or thinking is that of promoting integration. So in terms of indigenous knowledge, system and practices in the modern management of risk and disaster. So if we take into consideration the local or traditional or indigenous knowledge systems and practices that have succeeded in some cases, we need to integrate them into the modern risk management, or disaster and risk management policies or practices that being developed by UNESCO, ICOMOS, and other institutions. So there's also need to be able to enlarge or widen the digitization in order to protect the cultural data for a long-term period. So there's need for us to widen up the digitization of our increase or improve on the digitization process. And when we are doing that, we need to be able to, that will help us to preserve the data we have, the cultural information we have for future, in case there is wildfire, in case there is a flood, in case there is disaster, and then there's need for us to be able to digitize, thanks to the digitization process. So we're going to move to the next slide. Okay, in terms of conclusion, we will say that heritage resisting to disaster or natural disaster and conflict is primordial or is very important in Africa and in the world at large. So implicating or implementing local or involving the local communities will help us to protect our heritage, especially in reinforcing their resilience, the social and cultural resilience. So it is important for us to always involve the local communities when we are faced with disasters and risk management, or in terms of armed conflict. So in order to be able to reinforce their social and cultural resilience, please. So the call for action that we have today is to invest in participative strategies in order to preserve our common heritage. So there is need for us the need to invest in a participative strategies in order to preserve our common heritage. So that is what we have for the community preservation strategies in Africa with concrete examples, and in disaster and risk management, or disaster and conflict, in terms of resilience, in the face of resilience, the community is very much important or plays a vital role in mitigating the effects of disasters, natural disasters, and armed conflicts or conflicts. And it is important at each stage. So find a group of a dance group from Benin that they are dancing, and you find that it's always important for us to implement it. Thank you very much. The last slide, I think it is Chris, is the Digidi cultural cultural heritage with the dry stone structures that are there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your wonderful presentation and an elaborate one. And yeah, we ask all the presenters to allow us share these presentations because people are asking for them. I think these are referential materials people need to go back and maybe read, and those who need some kind of translations, they can translate, and so on and so forth. So thank you very much for presenting to us. I will ask the audience to allow me go into a third presentation because we are out of time, so that people who are having questions, they can ask once later after this presentation. So I welcome Conrad Kuzooka, who is a master holder of philosophy, specializing in conservation of built environment. As a dedicated heritage architect and educator with over 10 years of experience, Kuzooka specializes in the preservation, adaptive reuse, and sustainable design of historic buildings. His passion for cultural heritage and architecture has led him to work on a variety of projects that bridge the gap between history and modern needs. He collaborates with cross-disciplinary teams to ensure that the architectural and cultural significance of heritage structures are maintained while integrating contemporary functionality. And today, Mr. Kuzooka is presenting on epistemic justice. What are we doing? So take the floor, Mr. Kuzooka. Thank you very much.
I thank you
Feel
very
free
much.
to share your screen. Yep.
Right now, good evening. On my side, it is about 6 p.m. I don't know if my screen is visible yet or not.
Is it disturbing you?
Yes, it is.
Possibly, maybe you can be presenting. You can share with us the presentation, and we can share with the audience after.
Let me share the presentation with you quickly.
Okay.
And then I think we
can you can put it in the chat.
All right. And then you can just take it from there. All right, it should be uploading in a few.
Okay.
Do you have it on your side?
Yes. It is okay. Okay. Just a second.
All right. So as Christopher is working on the PowerPoint, I'll just give you a brief background. I am an architect. I've been in the practice of architecture for about 12, 13 years, but specifically in heritage about 10, and I'm a member of ICOMOS International. We're still trying to work out a national committee for Uganda for about, give or take, 8 years now, 7, 8 years. And this presentation is also a combination of two things, what I've been researching and studying on, and then also just my insights and overview in regards to heritage. Thank you very much, Mr. Kagosi, and also Alice. I know Alice personally. It's a pleasure for the presentations that you've just shared with me. And so I think we'll just move to the next slide just to quickly give you an introduction to what I'm sharing about today. So we're looking at disaster and conflict resilient heritage in Africa. I specifically said in Africa because I know today is the day of commemoration on monuments and sites. And I know there's other talks elsewhere, but my focus is on Africa. But my microscopic conversation on the next slide is going to be understanding conflict or understanding the disaster and conflict. And I know there's several participants on this page who have, can we first go back to the first page? I feel like the slides are rushing. So my topic, epistemic injustice and what are we doing on the broader context of trying to understand the disaster and conflict is to just question what heritage means to us. Next slide, the slide on epistemic injustice. And so when you look at an African person, they have a name, that name has a place of origin, that name has meaning, that name is attached to a tribe, a place, that place has an identity, it has practices, it has song, it has music, it has food. In essence, every African has an identity. And yet, when we look at the knowledge and the understanding of culture and heritage in Africa, we tend to rely on the, I'm going to call it the global north understanding and perspective and framework of what heritage is and what heritage should be. And I think for me, that is the first challenge we have to sort of overcome. And so when I look at epistemic injustice, epistemology is just the nature, the origin and scope of knowledge of a particular thing. And so when you look at epistemic injustice and what we need to do about it, it simply means that when we are trying to address global notions of heritage or global notions of knowledge of heritage in Africa, we seem to rely on outsiders instead of the insiders who are us, the people who live and share this heritage every day. And you know, when we are creating the framework or the conversation on how we should refer to resilience or to refer to conflict or to resolve the climate crisis or to understand sustainability or whatever it is under the framework of heritage, there is no African voice. And when I talk about African voice, UNESCO still relies on there's the Venice Charter, there's the NARA, then the NARA, then there is the NARA plus 20. And in half a century, that is almost 56 years now, of heritage, there is no African voice. And for me, that is where the epistemic injustice is. You know, what is the African Charter, or where is the African Charter that can guide and consolidate the conversation and the negotiation of heritage as a people? You know, and then we have now moved into the space of intangible cultural heritage. And the thing is, for me, what is intangible cultural heritage to an African? Because is it how I live every day? Or am I going to sort of isolate it and look at this culture, this identity that should be packaged as heritage to, I don't know, an audience or to a people or to a space that again, I'm still sort of struggling. But then I think it begs the question on the semantics of identity, on the semantics of culture, on the semantics of people. And I know everyone has shared their perspectives, I've been following the messages. So it's just a good perspective to understand how different individuals sort of understand and interpret heritage. And yet, as Africa, I think there needs to be a call to action, call to attention on how we should manage our heritage and how we should understand our heritage. And yes, we are throwing words like community participation, but is it enough to participate as a community in regards to safeguarding our heritage? Or is heritage on one hand and are we on this other side trying to sort of define what heritage is? Because for me, I think as Africans, our heritage is living heritage. It is, it's in the naming, it's in the music, it's in the it's in the food, and it is exactly what we are doing every day and how we're doing every day that I think defines the heritage. So for me, the epistemic injustice, meaning the refusal or the lack of, or the, I don't know, I don't want to say deliberate effort in focusing and creating a voice, an African unified voice on our heritage and understanding our heritage, and also on what we need to protect as our heritage. I think there is a voice in there. I know there's Patrick.
I'm so sorry about that. Please, Patrick, can you mute yourself?
All right, so Chris, I think so for me, these are my these voice this conversation is at the forefront of my mind in terms of what are we doing as Africans? Because in understanding the disaster and conflict, the first thing we need to do is aggregate and consolidate our knowledge gap, and the epistemology is very, very critical in this part. It is very, very important in trying to address the future demands, the future needs of heritage in the now. So this is research. So I am, on top of being an architect, I am purely now a researcher on heritage and things concerning heritage. And I'm going to share a good example of trying to understand the conflict and in a local case study back home. I translated it in French for both the English and French speakers. So I think Chris will go to the next slide.
Is it that one?
That is the one. So this is a personal photo I took of, and if you look at the image in the background, in the bluish, light bluish haze is the Rwenzori Mountains. In Uganda, we have 3 World Heritage listed sites, of which 2 are natural and 1 is built or architectural. And of the 3 or the 2 that are natural, the one that you see in the background is the Rwenzori Mountains. I don't know if we are very familiar with the Rwenzori Mountains. The Rwenzori Mountains is about, I think it's the second highest or third highest mountain in Africa, but it is where the Bwindi Impenetrable National Park, the one where the gorillas are, the endangered species, are located. This is a hazy view of the mountain, but I love it because it is my picture and I took it. I will go to the next slide, please. And so like I said, the Rwenzori it stands at 5,100 meters high, and it spans about 120 kilometers. It is on the border between DRC, that is Democratic Republic of Congo. So it shares a border. One side is on the Congo, one side is on Rwanda, on the Rwandan side. And then on the other side, or the ranges and the valley, the Rift Valley continues towards Rwanda. And then we have the Ugandan side. And so the Rwenzori is the one of the 2 natural heritage sites that are listed on the World Heritage Convention list. And so where is the conflict? So right now, the Rwenzoris are gazetted and have been gazetted as a national park. And by national park, meaning that other than the identity of preservation and conservation of natural and both natural and biodiverse flora and fauna, there is little to no physical or human settlement accepted in this particular area. And imagine in an area spanning over 120 kilometers, there is little to no human settlement required required in that area. And where is the conflict? If we can go to the next slide. The conflict is while the Rwenzoris are gazetted as a national park and are listed on the UNESCO World Heritage list as a natural heritage site, it is home to the Batwa tribe of the Rwenzoris, who have been living on this mountain and in these mountains for over 1,000 years. And so you can imagine that people who know this place as home, who identify this place and have lived in this particular space, have been forcefully displaced because, one, we have gazetted the place as a national park, and meaning no settlement is allowed. But on top of gazetting it as a national park, you've also listed it as a World Heritage Site. And then on top of the World Heritage Site, you're saying that the gorillas that stay on these mountains are endangered and they need to be protected. And so the people who have been living with the gorillas for a very long time, who understand the nature and the space and the forest, are being told that this cannot be your home anymore. And so sometimes when we're having the conversation on heritage and community and people, the people aspect tends to come last. We look at the physical significance, the natural significance, the historical significance. We give all these significances, and yet the people who live, who commune, who call this place home, you get it, are least looked at. And we know we talk about things like community participation, community involvement, community engagement. But imagine this is your home and you're being forcefully displaced for an idea that in a way is supposed to protect you, but doesn't, because somehow you are in the way of the idea. And so some of the conflicts for me in this space when we're looking at disaster and resilient heritage is, how do we protect, or how do we understand people who live and work in these spaces, who have lived in these spaces for centuries, but because we want to protect a certain type of heritage, we're looking at climate resilience, and we're looking at the effects of climate change, and we're saying, these people, this community can no longer stay in this space. And so the Batwa tribe, which is one of about 56 local tribes, have the identity, they're indigenous to the mountains, have lived here, know the entire the mountains in and out. What is very surprising and interesting is that when the mountains were being ascended, among the first people to sort of map out the route and the way and the places to pass, and if you sort of do a deep reading and research into the Batwa tribe, you realize that they have been sort of the safekeepers and conservators of this resource. And so they have the knowledge, and it is like I said, an epistemic injustice to sort of remove them from the equation of heritage, and yet they have been the protectors and holders of this heritage that we want to protect and hold much later. And so for me, I think it is very, very interesting just when we're talking about, conflict resilient and, how do we interpret and understand the heritage of the people, of the spaces that we're trying to protect? Is it a living heritage? Meaning, is it people who are living and working and communing in this space every day? And as outsiders, we're looking at, in this lens of protection, and yet they are the conservators. There's this interesting story about, Chris, we can go to the next slide. There's this interesting story about the tour guides, the Batwa people and the tour guides. And, part of the tourism is that they will tell you the time or the place or the season where you will most likely meet the gorillas and what they'll be doing and, in what areas and in what spaces. And because you have for a very long time people who have lived side by side with this heritage that we understand and we want to protect. So for me, I think when we're looking at conflict, we need to understand the people. So in this case, the Batwa tribe who have lived on the mountains for centuries, but then we're saying heritage, and the Rwenzori Mountains is considered as a national park locally, but also a World Heritage Site, globally. And then, the conflict, because you have the mountain gorillas of the Windy National Park on the, on the Rwenzoris, and, and which is also considered a World Heritage Site. And so you have the first eviction of people who call this home. In the essence of you're protecting heritage by evicting people who in essence have been protecting the heritage. And so the conversation of marginalization in heritage sometimes is very, very unique, because all these voices, and most times it's outside voices trying to control and share the narrative of insiders, and obviously it being at the border region means it's also been a source of conflict and war between the Congo, which has the M23 rebels, and the ADF, and that also threatens not just the World Heritage, because in a way, yes, the gorillas are threatened, the mountains are unsafe, but also the people who live and commune in this space are threatened, because that conflict means that they die and their heritage, their tribe, their song, their lifestyle is also destroyed, because as a capacity, as a community, you are threatening. And so what is the consideration for heritage in this space? And I think as heritage practitioners, and I think for me, we need to be very vocal, we need to be very intentional at a micro level, is how do we understand and negotiate and integrate living heritage, which is the daily life and attitudes of people, with the principles of conservation and heritage that we want to aspire and stand for. We can share the next slide. In essence, for me, that is the call to action right now. We have the EPWG, we have ICOMOS, and I think for me, my voice, and I know these people on these platforms who have been with ICOMOS for some time, is how do we collaborate? How do we engage heritage at a micro level? Yes, when you look at Timbuktu, what are the indigenous knowledge systems that have been passed on for centuries, or in Mali or in Benin, the techniques, the mud houses. How do we sort of dive down into understanding the heritage, and not just understanding the heritage, but to decode and to develop and to protect, but not from our point of view, because I think that is where, in essence, is a conflict is arising, but from a much more micro level of these are people who are living and engaging this heritage, be it at the coast, be it on the mountain, be it in any site, endangered or otherwise, be it in any space where the techniques are quickly dwindling. We need to Chris, can we go to the next slide, please? We need to put effort and time in decoding and engaging and finding ways of preserving the knowledge, you know, and that is very, very important. And when you look at epistemology, that is where the focus is. The focus is in sort of understanding, you know, the heritage at a micro level. And when you look at that, who are the Batwa people? These are people who have been indigenous to the Rwenzoris. Their lives, livelihoods, and cultures is centered around the Rwenzoris. It is very interesting that if a culture is prevalent and is indigenous to a particular area, if you moved or resettled these people, doesn't it affect the culture? Doesn't it affect the way of life? Doesn't it affect the way they understand? You know, they are commonly referred to as pygmies, and that is, they're native to the southern part of Uganda. And due to forced displacement from both government, through gazetting of the national parks and protection areas, they have lost their ancestral lands where they have lived for over 1,000 years. And now they are referred to as conservation refugees because, one, they have, or they are protectors of the forest and the knowledge, because the heritage and the protection and the sustainability and the tourism still deeply involves them. You know, it's centered around their rich culture, their rich knowledge of the forest, of the animals that live in the forest, of the patterns, and to the point where they would tell you, if you want to witness this and this, this is the time when you can, you know, see it. You know, if you want to see the gorillas, this is the best time to see them. This is when they feed, this is how they feed, this is where they feed from, this is the particular tree they like to, you know, tree or fruit or shrub. This is what they prefer. And so in essence, heritage has sort of created these marginalized victims of development, because when we look at sustainability and heritage, when we look at communal frameworks or protection, conservation of development, we sort of forget that this development affects lives at a micro level. And as heritage practitioners or as heritage personnel, sometimes we'll write these reports and we'll do this research. And while this research might be deep or might be well thought out, it does not focus or cater to the actual people, the people people affected by this heritage. And so that is a conversation I think we need to have at a micro level and at a macro level. That micro level, that is at a national level, and I don't want it to be at a national policy level, because that is a very difficult conversation, and I don't want us to go into the politics of heritage and negotiating policy and everything. But also at a continental level, if there are collaborators on the conversation around heritage and protecting heritage, why we need to sort of divest from the global north and develop a global south, a voice that speaks to the core frameworks and understanding of the heritage, the people, the living heritage, because we're very proud to use this term, intangible cultural heritage. But what is intangible about a culture or a heritage if it is very quickly dwindling, because the frameworks for measuring and protecting and conserving heritage are from the global north, and those do not speak, because the Nara or the Venice or the Nara plus 20 do not protect some of these things that we so gladly wanted to protect. Yes. And so if we can move to the next slide. And so it's very pertinent and important that as heritage practitioners, as heritage, be it architects, conservators, I know there's museum experts and people who are doing museology. It's very, very important that we put significant effort and time and collaborate at a micro level, meaning we need to sort of focus and zone in on the previous slide, please. We need to sort of focus and zone in on what heritage, whose heritage, And what heritage and whose heritage is a very, very simple question, but it's also a very deep question, because you know, whose heritage and what heritage, when you start to answer it, sort of opens up many sort of ideas and negotiations around conservation, preservation, protection, sustainability, of which, again, like I said, in a way, the global north, or the frameworks in the global north, are not going to cater to, protect, or even understand the knowledge systems in the global south. And so we need to sort of shift our perspectives. We need to have conversations. I wanted the French translation for those who, because I realized that there is both English, and so I tried to translate the slide in English and French. So I wanted the who de battoir for the, it's the next one, after the next slide after this.
This one?
Yeah, that one. The last slide is, no, the one before this. And so we need to sort of fight against epistemic injustice. And this is a term that I've had more recently from Professor Shahid Biada, and he was sort of talking about
Conrad, is it this
heritage.
one?
Yeah, that's the one that I wanted. Yeah. Okay. So I wanted, the reason I wanted to use this particular term, because when I had it clearly sort of, it sort of brought home this sort of conversation that I have been sort of having, and I've been trying to have with collaborators and people back home. And I've put significant effort just in my sort of micro space, and in sort of decoding what we understand as heritage locally, and in identifying whose heritage, and why we consider it as heritage. And if we were to use the global north matrices of measuring heritage significance, how does our heritage perform, or where would it perform best? And you start to realize it's in our heritage, and its intrinsic facets are mostly on, and I don't want to use culture, but it's in the people, it's in their space, and it's in their activities. And that is what defines their heritage. The people, their language, their activities defines their heritage. It can't be sort of commonplace fixed to, let's say, a castle or a monument, because that doesn't speak to us. For us, it's in the food, it's in the dance, it's in the traditional marriages, it's in the way, the language we speak. Surprisingly, and I want to give a clear example of the Batwa people, but the Batwa people of Rwenzori have a given name for the first up to the seventh child, such that if you had somebody mention their name, you would know the order or the list in which they were born just because of the name they have. The firstborn was always named this, and I don't want to, but you listen to names like Bwambale, and Bwambale is a second born, and there's all these things which are very interesting and unique, that speak to the culture and the nature of the culture, the essence, let me call it the essence of the culture, which again are not going to be found in a book or on a site or at a monument, but it's going to be in the people, and in understanding the people and their culture and their heritage. So if we can go for the last slide, please, as I summarize my conversation.
This one?
Yes, so when we look at heritage and conservation, and I think the conversation of what are we trying to do, or what is the call to action, I think we need, as people, as Africans, we need to document, record, collaborate, and share our knowledge. That is at the core of everything that we're doing as a heritage people, as a heritage society. Yes, that is very, very important. Yes, because when you don't document or record or collaborate or share this knowledge, it goes and it dies, and it somehow, we are affected and impacted by it. And then there has to be a unified continental effort, both at the micro level, meaning back home, we need to sort of build the capacity for people, not just communities which enjoy or interact with the heritage, but for people to sort of document and record and collaborate and share this knowledge in the naming, in the music, in the song, in the food, in the culture, in the people and their way of living, and celebrate that heritage, not just for sort of purposes of tourism, but for the virtue of preserving and sort of protecting that knowledge. Yes, and so the unified effort should start at home at a micro level, but also at a macro level, meaning the conversations at the EPWG level, at the ICOMOS Africa level, at ICROM, or at any conversation where it is the African continent, we need to start having deliberations, because the techniques you'll find in the madhouses in the deserts of Mali or in Timbuktu, I'm pretty confident are the techniques I'll find somewhere down south, even back home in the, in the madhouses that are being constructed. But is there comparative understanding on the way the soil is, prepared, preserved? Is that a conversation we can have to see how is it done here and how was it done there? And where, if these techniques met, was there a meeting point or was there no meeting point? How was this knowledge gathered? How was it shared? Who was allowed to and who wasn't allowed to? I feel like those conversations and that collaboration will elevate the way we understand and look at both the heritage and then the semantics of the politics of heritage, that is in the protection, in the conservation, in the sustainability, and everything that comes along with that. And then lastly, because I am an avid researcher and reader, we need to publish, and that is my humble request, we need to publish everywhere, because sometimes when you're reading and doing research on local information and knowledge, there is very few publications, whether it's official or unofficial. Please, I think there should be a portal on the way we need to exchange knowledge on the continent. And with that, I'd like to thank you very much for listening to me and for your time. I hope I was able to translate a little bit in the English and the French, but I think this is a beautiful start, but I feel like we need to elevate it and concretize this conversation such that we are able to sort of establish a conversation around the knowledge of heritage on the African continent. And for me, that is, I feel like a desire and a dream. Thank you very much.
Wow. Thank you very much, Conrad, for that wonderful presentation. I feel so sorry that we are running out of time and we may not have a lot of time to ask many questions, but what I'm going to ask my colleagues, we are collecting the questions, so we are going to address, if the questions are not addressed now, we are going to ask the presenters to respond these questions by email, and then we can email back these answers to the questions. And Conrad is saying publish, publish, publish. And in his presentation, he's keeping asking us, what are you doing in your own capacity? He's advocating for a unified continental effort at all levels. So whether you're a scientific scholar, whether you're a teacher or a lecturer, whether you're an indigenous knowledge expert, what are you doing in your own capacity? And he's advocating for the deconstruction of the Global North framework, document, collaborate, and promote knowledge exchange. Actually, I'm one of the people who believes the best way of conservation is dissemination, actually. So Conrad is putting it right there. The issue of censorship in conservation of heritage. And actually, he is saying that natural heritage can coexist with cultural heritage, with example of the Batwa of Rwenzoris and the conservation of the gorillas. And Terence's presentation he was talking about resilient heritage strategies using the community participation and involvement. And he's also very advocating for some of the tools for conservation, giving examples from UNESCO, ICOMOS, and IUCN. And if I'm not mistaken, because we are running out of time, I don't know if we have 1 or 2, 3 questions you can address to our presenters, and then they can answer now. Or if we can't get all the answers, I pledge we will send the answers to the emails you registered with us because of time. So thank you very much. Do we have any question? I think I will start with Mr. Deng, who had a question before, and maybe you can have others coming through. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm delighted. I'm very happy with presentation. Are you getting me well? Can you hear me?
Yes, please.
Yeah, I'm delighted with the presentation of the three presenters. All of them precise and to the point. I'm delighted that we can share our knowledge through this forum. And I was just, because all of them, they presented and they put the solution, but also we can look into what we can share with them, like the issue of climate change. What can we do to address this issue of climate change, which is also affecting everywhere, especially with African state party. And the second one also was the issue of how can we how can our impact as heritage expertise, the decision makers, so that also when they plan as national planners, they fit into issue of heritage conservation, heritage protection. And for the last presenter, Conrad, which also bring up the issue of ICH, intangible cultural heritage, with the community, the heritage side, the community benefits. I think it's very clear that because without a community also we'll have no heritage side. Because the value of that community, the side also it belongs to the community, and also we want a balance. So I don't have any much to say. It's good that we share our knowledge together. And that time also I will be able also to prepare myself to do a presentation when we are presenting. Thank you very much. I'm happy.
Wow, that is really very interesting, Mr. Deng, for that promise to have a presentation. Yes, keep a tab on us. We'll keep having these webinars through, and every time we come to you, kindly join us, and we have a moments together. Any other questions?
Hi, Chris.
Yes.
I think we have a question in the chat, and this is from
okay.
Yeah, and this is from Krala. She said, how can community, I think this question was directed to Teres, and it said, how communities be engaged in resilience when they are dealing with life and death? Like, how can we engage them in the resilient matter while they are also dealing with life and death? And we also have question from Clara again, said, what attempt has been made? This is for Terence also. What attempt has been made to educate young people who joined armed function?
Okay, Terence, do you have something to say about these questions? And maybe even other presenters, if they have any additions or
we have one question. We have one question from Rodri.
Thank you, Zura. Let me do the first question. That was, hello, Zura.
Please go ahead. Terence, go ahead.
Il a demandé le ministère des Forêts a rarement, lors d'une décision transférée, la gestion des parcs nationaux et est protégée aux étrangers. Maintenant, ça demande, est-ce une mesure de protection ou conservation des patrimoines? En anglais, il faut Ministry of Forestry has rarely made a decision to transfer the management of national park and protected areas to foreigners. Is this a measure of heritage protection or conservation? It is from Rodrigue Sake Kima.
Et patrimoine naturel dans le pays. Je crois que les conséquences vraiment sont la privatisation des sites, des lieux ou alors des sites.
Lost Terence.
Très pertinent et important pour c'est ces territoires aux conséquences qui peuvent être néfastes, qui peuvent être négatives, et on peut avoir aussi des conséquences positives.
Terence, we can't get you actually, you're on and off.
Si on prend le cas du Cameroun et un lieu d'exploitation, soit où c'est lié à un parc, où on a les clauses, il y a souvent une clause qui est inclue dans les contrats de cessation de ces territoires ou de ces parcs. Pour la gestion, la protection au Cameroun Allô? Pour le cas du Cameroun, nous avons des biens, il y a une décision arrêtée ministérielle qui classe les biens
Hello, Terence.
culturel sur la liste du patrimoine national légal qui existe et qui doit être de 2013 et ça décrète le lieu. Si c'est cédé, ça implique qu'il faut vraiment absolument que ça soit respecté et que les constructions prennent en compte des structures, des ONG, des partenaires du ministère de la Forêt et de la Faune qui impliquent dans la gestion ou dans la conservation des parcs et d'autres aires protégées et qui sont régis par leurs textes qui sont là en place. Si je passe aussi rapidement au what attempts have been made to educate the young people who join armed fractions? I will say for the case, in fact, the community is very much or is always involved the younger generations and also recalcitrant population trying to mingle with them and then to cause a lot of destruction or looting. So when the community is always at the center, that they have to educate they inform families, bring up their children very well. The disarmament center, where those groups, the terrorist groups, then enter a reintegration center, where they are completely disarmed and then they are reintegrated into the society, and then they learn to see what really push them in joining such armed conflicts or armed try bringing solutions to them by economic activities to excel well in life, because most of the thing is that they are always lured by jobs or high payment or high
Okay, I think
salaries,
Terence,
and
thank
then
you
some of
very
them join
much.
South Korea. Counseling takes place in these disarmament and reintegration centers, which they have been constructed in the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon. Well, what is the other question?
I think the other question, I think you've really answered.
Hello?
Terence? Okay.
Chris?
I think yes, please. Thank you very much, Terence, for the response to the questions. And I'll give Conrad, I think he has a question. Briefly can ask his question, or even answering some of the questions that were asked. Conrad?
Thank you very much, Chris. Mine was just a response to some of the questions I've seen in the message. And the one, how do we get youth involved, or how do we stop the youth from sort of straying, especially in places of conflict? Now, in Karamoja, back here in Uganda, it's a nomadic pastoral community, and the youth are taught from a very young age to carry guns and raise your cattle. And in case of armed conflict, you fire at cattle rustlers and things. And so, how then do you diverse, well, is it diverse? The mentality or the mindset from sort of armed conflict. And I think the idea or the conversation is to sort of go back to the community and understand first how they live, what they have been living by, and then you can try and find solutions to address that. Now, in this case, there's been saying disarm the youth, or disarm the pastoralists, and they will not fight, but they will still fight, because culturally, whether it is arms or not, if people know how to live a certain way, they sort of act and will continue to live in that particular way, which I think is at the core of the way we understand and interpret community in heritage. We have this superficial sort of book, scripted narrative on how we address or engage community. And yet when you go down to the community and the way people live, because somebody said, how do you help people who are just struggling to live and, worried about dying? And it is to find ways in which heritage, because heritage is about hope, it's about the future, but it's to find ways in which that heritage can embrace and regrow that community. Our primary focus being engaging the community at a micro level, understanding their way of life, and then sort of not problem solving, but engage them, because I'm pretty confident, and I know for a fact that in spaces and areas where heritage community, and I'm trying to remember an example where there was a particular conflict with the way particular designers of a particular hat, African hat, they're saying, oh, you have to do it this way because you protect the heritage. And people are like, but we have the knowledge, but we don't have that particular interest anymore because it doesn't serve us anymore. And so most times, if you listen to community, they will give you the answers to the questions you're asking. But we need to stop pushing a particular narrative on the way community as a whole, or people as a whole, when addressing and dealing with heritage, have to think about and engage the heritage. So the youth are looking for spaces. Yeah. So how can the youth engage their heritage at a level that celebrates and protects them, but also gives them a means to earn? In this case of the patois are looked as primarily conservators, but also tourist guides. On top of the tourist guides, there is a lot of feedback, meaning a lot of the products that they're producing are being put on the market as tourist material for buying and sharing. And in a way, then you have support facilities and other opportunities where you can engage, help support the patois in terms of education, in terms of so like, I know there's a particular hotelier who uses them in, I don't want to get into the politics, but so there is a rich man in the city who built a hotel, and because he's deeply interested in the heritage of the Batwa, he hired, you know, personnel from there to come and work at the hotel. But that is just one person, but that is his way of identifying and addressing what? The issue. So people like to create change and impact change. We just need, as heritage practitioners, not to listen to them, not as heritage practitioners, but as people first, and then the heritage comes second, because that is what people want to what? Sort of, they want to live life and to live a good and wonderful, hopeful life without any issues. So listen to the people, the community, and engage them and let them enjoy and celebrate their heritage through music, through food, through practice. Yes, and that is very critical in the way we protect, conserve, and understand heritage. So that is my general understanding on the way we should focus, because we need to, so the way we're negotiating the word community and throwing it around, we need to be very intentional and deliberate and soft, you know, with how we are dealing. You know, you can't go to a community that is marginalized and then say, oh yeah, I want to. No, you first understand how they are being marginalized, why they are being marginalized. And I don't want to say Eurocentric approaches are not going to solve the problems. But as people, they want to be listened to, they want to be engaged, and they want to share their story, because that is very important to them. So we need to reassess and evaluate how we are engaging the community and how the community needs to be engaged with. And then we can act from the point of heritage or protection and conservation. And then we can problem solve, not just as heritage experts, but as a people who are trying to engage this community for the betterment of the community that we are involved in. So that is just my key takeaway on trying to address this.
Thank you very much, Conrad, for the zeal you have. Good news is I am aware of an international conference on authenticity of African heritage in Nairobi, which is coming on in May. I think starts from on 5th to 9th. I think that is going to be a platform to listen from about the different ideas of authenticity in African perspective. Yeah, I understand your advocation for this, and so yeah, I want to say thank you very much. Without wasting any more time, guys, allow me to thank you very much for giving us your time. I know it is a busy season. People are preparing for Easter, but you decided to be around. So thank you very much. And we'll get back to you. Those who registered with us to attend this webinar, we have your emails. But those who did not register, who just went directly to the link, you can write to that email my colleagues have been putting in the chat, so that you can get these materials. And I'll ask all the presenters to allow us make these presentations available for our audience, so that they can keep consulting on them, and we'll share your emails with the audience in case they have particular questions or anyone wants to collaborate with you in doing research and publication or any kind of collaboration that will be shared. And I want to thank also Deng, who has offered to present in the next webinar we may have. So we'll contact you, Mr. Deng, and this is what we are calling for from everybody to come and share with us, especially with the young professionals who are coming through. So thank you very much, guys. And allow me to say, yeah, you can live at your ease. Maybe if my colleagues have anything to add or to say before anyone goes, I would like the bureau members to stay around. We need to do something.
Sorry, can we have a group photo if you won't mind, please? Can you switch on your camera, please?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
We want to have your beautiful faces and smiles, and yeah. Thank you very much. So, Madam Photographer, you have 2 pages, so you need to cover the 2 pages.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe give some few minutes, Zura, for people to turn on their cameras.
Yes, please.
Yep.
Okay, smile. Smile.
Yeah. Thank you very much, colleagues.
And before
Thank
I would like to share the map.
Okay. Thank you very much, our colleagues from all over the planet. Colleagues from Benin, Burkina Faso, Kenya, Uganda, Ghana, Nigeria, Cameroon, India, Malaysia, Federal Republic, Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, Congo, Botswana, United States, South Africa, Tanzania.